The night was heavy, with an unsettling stillness, the kind that clings to your skin and makes you glance over your shoulder even when you're certain no one is there. My day had already been long, and all I wanted was to get home. My tie was loosened, sleeves rolled up, and the dashboard clock glowed an ominous 9:47 p.m. as I cruised through empty streets. My thoughts wandered to my couch, Netflix, and the untouched frozen pizza waiting in my freezer. The city felt eerily asleep, with streetlights flickering like they were struggling to stay awake. Then it happened. Headlights emerged in my rearview mirror, far too close for comfort. A moment later, red and blue lights began flashing. My stomach sank. What could they possibly want? I pulled over, muttering under my breath. My driving record was impeccable. Not even a parking ticket. Did I miss a stop sign? Speed? I adjusted my hands on the wheel, gripping it at 10 and 2 like I was back in driver's ed. 2 officers stepped out of the patrol car. The first, Sergeant Lucas Grant, moved with the authority of someone who believed the world owed him obedience. His square jaw and steely eyes could cut glass. Behind him was Officer Ethan Taylor, a hulking figure with a presence that made the shadows seem smaller. Grant leaned into my window, his flashlight shining directly into my eyes. "License and registration," he barked. "Evening, officer," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Is there a problem?" "Oh, there's a problem," Grant said, his tone colder than the winter air. He didn't elaborate, leaving me to stew in the discomfort of the unknown. As I handed over my documents, Taylor circled the car. His boots crunched against the pavement, each step loud enough to make my heartbeat pick up. Then, without asking for permission, he popped the trunk. My pulse quickened. Before I could protest, he exclaimed, "Well, well, well, look what we have here." Grant opened my door and pulled me out roughly, slamming me against the side of my car. Confusion and fear collided in my chest. In the trunk was a backpack. Inside, there were stacks of cash and a gun that looked like it had seen action in more than a few violent crimes. "What the hell is that?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. Grant smirked. "That's what we're about to figure out." "Wait! That's not mine!" I protested, panic bubbling to the surface. "I've never seen that bag before." But my words fell on deaf ears. Grant cuffed me while Taylor secured the bag, his grin as smug as if he'd just solved the case of the century. They shoved me into the back of their cruiser, the stale air reeking of sweat and desperation. As the car rolled through the silent streets, I could hear their conversation up front. "Think he'll break in the first hour?" Taylor asked, his tone dripping with cruel amusement. "Guys like him?" Grant chuckled. "They're done before the coffee gets cold." I clenched my fists, their words sinking into my skin like venom. Guys like me? What did that even mean? The station was no better. They dragged me into an interrogation room straight out of a crime drama. Cold metal table, flickering fluorescent light, and walls that seemed to close in with every breath I took. Grant and Taylor sat across from me, their eyes sharp and predatory. "Why don't you save us some time and tell us what you were doing near the bank tonight?" Grant started, his voice feigning patience. "I wasn't near any bank. I was at work. Call my boss, check the cameras, do whatever you need to do." My voice cracked, the frustration boiling over. Taylor grinned like a cat playing with a cornered mouse. "Funny, because your fingerprints are all over that gun." My heart sank. "That's impossible," I said, shaking my head. "You're lying." Grant slammed his hand on the table, making me flinch. "Watch your tone, kid. You're in no position to call anyone a liar." For hours, they grilled me. Accusations flew like daggers, twisting my words and turning every denial into something incriminating. By the time they threw me into a holding cell, I was exhausted, both mentally and physically. The cell smelled of sweat and despair. A man in the corner hummed an off-key tune, his eyes never leaving me. Morning arrived too soon. My court-appointed lawyer, Eric Daniels, finally showed up. He looked more like a disheveled accountant than a defense attorney, flipping through my case file with an expression that screamed, "You're screwed." "This doesn't look good," he muttered. "No kidding," I snapped. "How about proving I didn't do it?" Eric sighed. "I'll try, but the evidence is compelling." Compelling. That word echoed in my head as I sat through my trial. Grant and Taylor sat smugly at the prosecution's table, their confidence oozing from every pore. The prosecutor painted me as a criminal mastermind, weaving a narrative so tight that even I began to question my own innocence. The jury's eyes bore into me like I was a bug under a magnifying glass. But then, Eric did something unexpected. He stood up, his voice steady for the first time. "Your Honor," he said, "we have newly obtained evidence." The courtroom's projector came to life, displaying grainy footage from a traffic camera. It showed Grant and Taylor pulling me over, and Taylor casually placing the bag in my trunk. The room erupted. Grant shot to his feet, his face pale. "That's doctored! Fake!" he shouted. The judge's gavel slammed down. "Sit down, Sergeant Grant." But Eric wasn't done. He produced audio recordings that caught snippets of their conversation. "Think we'll hit the quota with this one?" Taylor's voice echoed through the courtroom. The judge's face darkened. "This court will not tolerate perjury or evidence tampering. Officers Grant and Taylor, you are hereby remanded into custody pending further investigation." As they were escorted out, their smugness replaced with sheer terror, I stood. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a badge. The room gasped. "For the record," I said, locking eyes with Grant, "I'm Agent Nathan Cooper, FBI. This wasn't just a setup, it was an investigation, and you failed." The media swarmed me as I left the courthouse, microphones thrust into my face. "Agent Cooper, how does it feel to bring down corrupt cops?" one reporter shouted. I smiled faintly. "Feels like justice." But I knew this was only the beginning. Corruption runs deep, and the shadows always hold more secrets. As I walked away, the weight of unfinished business pressed on my shoulders. The fight for justice wasn't over, not by a long shot.